So, morning musings. I don't have much battery left on my phone, so I don't feel like I could do a video live. But what's coming through this morning, I'm on my walk, and so you're going to hear the background noises of me walking. I love the landscape. I love nature. I love being out in nature. But actually, some of my favourite landscapes is where you see nature reclaiming structures, buildings, walls, man-made objects. And I love that. I love seeing that because what's coming through is the impermanence of things. You know, we, as human beings, we connect into this concept of things being permanent, things being the way they are, and the inability for change. When in actual fact, nature is all about change. It's all about flow. There is no permanence in nature. Nothing ever remains the same. I mean, every 7 years, every cell in your body has changed. You're a completely different person. And the landscapes shift and change with the seasons, with the weather, natural events, unnatural events. You know, change really is the only constant. And what we're calling into being now is massive, major change. And massive and major change, which is going to trigger this concept of permanence. When something has been taught that this is the way it is and this is the way it has always been, and I say taught because we don't actually know. None of us can actually say this is the way it's always been, because we weren't there in physical form when we don't have and hold a physical memory of it. You know, all we can go on is what we're being told was the case, and what we read and other people's accounts. But one thing that we know from our current experience over the last year and a half is that what we're told and what we read is often, and has certainly been over the last 18 months, one person's opinion. And it can be dictated by those that are in power. And so it's the opinion of those that are in power. It's the information that people want you to know, want you to believe. So this concept of permanence is really being triggered because nature is reclaiming. Nature, the natural world, the natural laws, the divine laws, as it were, is reclaiming this physical playground, this physical landscape that we as eternal beings are currently engaged in the experience of. And so one of the things that is coming through is allowing yourself to let go of this concept in whatever way, shape or form feels right for you and feels capable for you. Because we always have to work within our own parameters of where we are and honour and respect that. It is what it is. And regardless of how long you've been on this journey of spiritual evolution, spiritual reclamation, spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it, the ascension process, descension process, it really doesn't matter. It's where you are in this moment and how you're seeing things, how you're feeling about things. And it's really time to get radically honest with ourselves. You know, we can bullshit ourselves so much. Oh, I've been doing this work for 20 odd years, and believe ourselves to be a certain way along the line, conning ourselves and hiding our true feelings, our true thoughts from ourselves. And so it's really, really important, without judgment and from a place of absolute love and divine neutrality, to really look at where you are and how you're seeing things and how connected you are in this moment to this concept of permanence. One of the things about the human construct is that we like to construct, we like to build things, and we believe that those things are going to be permanent, whether it's a philosophy, whether it's a religious doctrine, whether it's an actual structure itself. And so that's why I love seeing, rusty metal, that's decayed and broken, and that's been reclaimed by the earth. Oh, there's a car going past. One sec. I'm on a country lane, and there are very, very few cars, but there are some houses down at the bottom. And I love seeing the old, structures. I live in Sheffield at the minute, and this used to be quite, with the Industrial Revolution, this used to be quite an industrial place. And there's lots of old millworks, old quarried stone and things like that. But even in nature, even if man hasn't had a hand to things and hasn't created structures and then left them. I mean, we look at civilizations, in the Amazon and places, massive civilizations, powerful civilizations. Everything has crumbled to dust, and actually the only way that you can even determine that they existed where they did is by taking a topography map or something and looking at the evidence beneath, that lies beneath the ground, because nature has completely taken it back, reclaimed it. But even, from a natural setting without man's hands, water, air, the wind will decay mountains. The landscape shifts and changes. It alters. It moves with whatever is going on around it. And that's what we're being called to do, is to be more fluid. To be more fluid in our attachments. To be more fluid in our attachments to our beliefs about permanence and what is and what has been. So that we are preparing it. I really feel at the minute that we're in a preparing ground. We're in a staging ground, preparing state. And so for some people that's going to be quite frustrating, because you just want the new earth to come and it all to be glorious. Well, the birthing process is oftentimes not the prettiest experience. What comes at the end is wonderful and fabulous, and all of the challenge that you've gone through to get to that state is forgotten. But the actual process of birthing something new, especially when there is such resistance to it, what we resist persists, as they say. And there's an awful lot of resistance on this planet at this time within the collective consciousness that wants to hold on to this concept of permanence, that wants to hold on to that which has been, that which was, and that which has been perceived to be, and also that which has been manipulated to be as well. We are letting go of a lot of control structures, and this is a big part of that. Letting go of this concept of permanence is really letting go of control. When you let go of this idea of permanence, and that things are a certain way and they look a certain way and you experience things in a certain way, and you let go and kind of step off the map, step off the path, as it were, into uncharted territory, you're in the unknown. And that's massive in terms of letting go of control. And that's one of the things that I've lived my whole life, is this process of just gradually allowing myself to step away from what I lovingly used to describe as being a control freak to, the realm of control enthusiast. And then, being friends with, coming to terms with fluidity, trust, basically trusting in the universe, trusting in the wider self that you are, that is the all that is. that, you know, you're not always going to know, but you're going to receive some form of nudge, some form of inspiration to take action on. And, you know, allowing yourself to do that, allowing yourself to take that action off the path, off piste, as it were, without all the control mechanisms of, you know, risk assess, you know, like, okay, we might do a risk assessment, but, you know, needing to know that it's going to be successful, needing to know that everything's going to be okay. You know, without all of those mechanisms that we have as humans connected to this construct of permanence, you know, have created around ourselves. And all of those control mechanisms are really, and this is the paradox, and there's always so many paradoxes that show through when I connect into this information. It's like, you know, the paradox of being connected to your egoic identity construct and then fearing death. It's like, well, you know, if you believe that this is all there is and that this is a one-time thing, from my perspective, you would make the most of it. You would be like, I'm going to live this life to the full. If this is it, this is all I get, rather than, you know, controlling your life and allowing others to control your life just to kind of keep it safe and to extend it, you know, to the utmost. I remember having a conversation with my dad when he was dying, and he'd had a terminal cancer diagnosis, but previously to that he'd been quite ill and he'd had diabetes, and he'd led such a restricted life in what he could eat. He really loved his cream cakes and his sweets, and obviously he'd been guided by the medical professionals not to eat that kind of food, and had led a really, really restricted life. And we sat down and we had a conversation when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I said, look, you know, at the end of the day, the diabetes isn't going to kill you, and it comes down to quality over quantity. And me personally, and this has been something that I have held within me my whole life, it's about quality. I'm really not bothered how long I have on this planet, as long as I make the most of every moment here. And so, you know, we went to the shop and he went wild. He went to the cake section and just, you know, just picked that which filled him with joy, filled him with love in that moment. And it was a really beautiful experience. But yeah, we as humans, we put these control measures in because of the paradox, and we end up just existing to prolong this life. But why do that? Why have a long life which is purely one of existence and control and restriction and limit? Why, you know, why do that? But that's how many people live, and I'm not judging it. It just doesn't resonate with me, and never has really. But this is also what we're being called to kind of shift and change from, all of these beliefs and constructs of permanence. But within that as well, you know, we are eternal. But eternal and permanence are two separate things. We are eternal, but we don't remain in one state. So we are eternal beings of love and light. That's what I've always been guided, you know, from childhood, as to what we are and who I am. But the state, the form that we take will shift and change. And so with permanence, it is this belief, this concept that that which is will always be. But eternality, as it were, is that everything continues and yet changes at the same time. And so allowing ourselves to shift from the concept of permanence to eternality, I don't know. It's coming through, and it makes sense when I kind of receive it, but my mouth can't speak it. Eternality, yeah. So yeah, that's what wanted to come through today. So allowing ourselves to connect more in, to let nature, to let the natural laws, the divine laws of nature, of the universe, of ourselves, of the all that is, to reclaim this physical landscape, to reclaim this mental landscape and emotional landscape that we have existed within for however long. And as I say, the concept of permanence that we have been taught may not actually be true in reality. But allowing ourselves to shift, to let nature reclaim us, and to let nature reclaim who and how we are, and to step away from the concept of permanence, and to allow ourselves to move with as much ease and grace as we possibly can, and with as much honor for ourselves on that journey as we can, into the understanding of eternality. So shifting from permanence to eternality. And I really love that. That feels really lovely and beautiful, and it's fluid and it's flowing, and we see it all around us. So just allowing ourselves to actually connect in with, even if it is just getting out into nature and actually allowing yourselves to look at these structures that have decayed, that have, been reclaimed by nature. It's beautiful. See the beauty in that. Because if you can see the beauty in that, in the physical landscape, then that gets reflected on the internal side as well, just as the internal gets reflected on the external landscape. So this is what wanted to be shared. I hope that serves you well. Sorry for any background noise or anything, or whether the sound quality is not great, but as I say, I've just come out on a walk, and whenever I'm inspired to channel, I do try and record it in some way, because I can never fully remember after the event. All right, take care, have a wonderful day, and I shall speak to you all again soon. Bye.